lesson you will classify and analyze samples and classify and analyze studies. Now there's going to be a lot of vocabulary, so get ready. But first I want to give you an example. Mr. Drews is trying to determine whether we should change the school mascot or not. I mean, we're the Dusters, honestly. What are those? So he decides to survey some students, and here's some different things he could do. He could divide into classes, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and then do a random survey from each class. He could just choose random students, just didn't matter what grade they're in. Or he could ask people to volunteer what their ideas are, or he could talk to students only that ride the bus. Now these are 4 different types of samples that we're going to learn about. And when you do a survey, how you sample is very important. So first of all, what is a sample? You've heard me say that word. It's some portion of a larger group selected to represent that group. Population is a large group of data usually represented by a sample. So for example, all of the light bulbs manufactured on a production line are the population, but a sample is just selecting 24 to test. A population is all the water in the swimming pool. But I'm just going to take a test tube of water from the pool as my sample to test for chlorine. A population would be all the people in the United States. But I'm just going to pick 1,509 from throughout the United States as a sample. So a sample is a smaller section of a larger group. Now, a simple random sample is a sample that is as likely to be chosen as any other from the population. These are the 4 types. These are the 4 examples I gave you in the Mr. Drews survey. A systematic is a sample in which the items in the sample are selected according to a specific time or item interval. Time or item interval is very important there. A self-selected sample is members volunteer to be included in the sample. A convenient sample is a sample that includes members of a population that are easily accessed. And a stratified sample is a sample in which the population is first divided into similar groups, and then a selected random sample is from each group. So look in your notes if you need help here. Which would this be? Animals in a zoo are divided by species. Then 2 animals are selected at random from each group to have their blood tested. What kind of sample does that sound like? Now, if you'll look at your notes, you'll notice that that is, in fact, a stratified. I don't know if I spelled that right, so you can correct me if I made a mistake there. Now, what is the sample and what is the population here? Well, the sample is 2 animals from each group. That's the smaller group. What is the population in this? The population is every animal in the zoo, right? Or all animals in the zoo. Now, we have to decide. This was a stratified sample. It says to explain, well, you could say first they are split up into groups. Stratified means groups. So first they're split up into groups and then a sample is taken from that group. Now you try the example in your notes. Bias is an error that results in a misrepresentation of members of a population. So here's a couple examples. In every 10th customer in line for Justin Bieber's concert tickets is asked about his or her favorite music artist. Do you hear the bias there? If they're at a Bieber concert, they have Bieber fever and they're going to pick Bieber. They are not going to pick somebody else. So that's not fair. That's biased. Every 5th person coming into a grocery store is asked to name their favorite music artist. That is unbiased. That is fair. Because random people that are shopping are going to be able to say different things. So you are going to have to pick out items that are biased or unbiased. So why don't you try the example in your notes? So here's the different types of studies that you can do. A survey study, where you collect data by behavior or opinion or characteristic, and then to determine whether the student body is happy with the spring dance, the dance committee asks for a sample of students for their opinion. And you guys all know what a survey is. An observational study is members of a sample are observed without being affecting the whole study. So a gaming company watches a group of teens play a selection of video games and notes the ones they play the most. That's observational. An experiment is when you divide into 2 groups, an experimental group that undergoes a change and one that does not. So a teacher administers a paper pencil test to 2 algebra classes, and she administers a computer test that covers the same material to the other. The teacher compares the scores, and so that's an experiment. One was given the paper test, one was given the computer test, and how did they compare? So what kinds would this be? A local charity is interested in finding out whether residents would use a curbside pickup service for donations. They distribute 30 questionnaires to people living in the neighborhood. So they're distributing questionnaires. So this would be a survey because you're asking people questions about which they would rather have, and you're developing something for them to complete. How about advertising? A company shows 5 different commercials that advertise the same product, and then the company records the students' reactions to those commercials. Well, that is going to be an observational because somebody is sitting outside and they're looking at the reactions of those students. So you try the example in your notes. Now, survey questions should not be confusing. They should not encourage members to answer in a certain way. They should not cause a strong reaction, and they should not address more than one issue at a time. So, is this biased or not biased? Is your favorite ice cream flavor plain vanilla or delicious chocolate? That's biased. Do you see why? Right here, I'm putting a feeling word in there that causes a strong reaction. What type of reading material do you enjoy? That is unbiased. It is just directly to the point, and it is one single item. So you look at the questions in your notes and determine if they're biased or unbiased. A dog trainer wants to test training speed with a new method, and she selects 3 terriers as the control group and teaches a trick using her normal method. She selects 3 greyhounds as the experimental group and teaches them the same trick using the new method. She then compares the training times. So we have to know if this is biased or unbiased and then explain why we feel so. Well, if you look at her sample and her population, she is picking these certain animals. These are different types of dogs, and so is one type of dog maybe more apt to learn a trick than another? Yes, they are. So we are going to say that this is biased because based on the pedigree or the type of dog, it is going to maybe learn tricks better than others. We know that a terrier maybe might learn more than a greyhound, so that is why. So that would be my explanation, something about the types of dogs, and that's why it's biased. Try the example in your notes.